Hi, team. Welcome to 10 Talks. Today's conversation is all about you winning your well being, really being a champion for you. And we have the honor of having Dr. Hunter, our teammate, with us. And today's all about gut health. It's really about you being able to own your gut and what it does for you, why it does the things that it does, and most importantly, how valuable it is. We're going to tie that into our Give Hope, Get Happy cue, all about really understanding the power of taking care of our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our heart, in terms of really being able to get us set up to win in our lives. So, Dr. Hunter, thank you so much for joining us. Love for you just to share a bit about you and about your passion for lifestyle medicine.
Great. Thank you, Carlette. My name is Joan Hunter. I'm an internal medicine physician, and in 2020, I received my secondary board certification in lifestyle medicine. And lifestyle medicine really is what I like to refer to as whole person health and wellness. So we have 6 pillars of health that we focus on, and they include healthy nutrition, physical activity, healthy sleep, stress reduction, healthy relationships, and toxin reduction, specifically in the areas of alcohol and tobacco reduction. And today I'm really excited to share how all of those pillars interact together for our optimal gut health and how important gut health is for total body health. So, Carlette, you've probably heard of the microbiome before. Do you know that word?
Yes.
And what does that mean to you when I say that?
Well, absolutely nothing until I learned to really think about it as my gut. And that's the beauty of this is really just getting accustomed to the new language and health that's being used. We love how much information's out there. We're hearing so much. And what I value so much about you and our work is that we can put it into really peak performance. How do we take all this information and make it about ourselves and be able to really own our bodies, our minds, what we're putting in it, what we're eating, everything that's happening with it. So, coach us up on really the power of our gut.
Yeah. And when I say the microbiome, or when we talk about the microbiome in science, it's not just the gut. When we say the microbiome, it's really the trillions of microorganisms that live all over our body. You know, we have a skin microbiome, we have a microbiome in our nose and mouth. And we think about the gut. You know, we'll call it either the gut microbiome or just the microbiome. It's really referring to the gut because there's actually more non-human cells just in your colon, your large intestine, than there are in our whole bodies.
Oh my goodness, this is
So,
amazing.
so I like to say that we're the mothership for this whole other microcosm. And really, as you were saying, what we put in our body and what we do with our body impacts the health of our microbiome. You know, not just say taking an antibiotic. We all know that if you do that, it can alter your gut health, cause diarrhea, give you a yeast infection, you know, and that's because the delicate balance of these microorganisms gets thrown off by a lot of different things. So we're really kind of the host, as I say, for all of these things, but it's a symbiotic relationship if we treat our microbiome well. And so we'll kind of talk through, you know, why the microbiome is important and how to improve it. And the good news is we have a lot of control, which is what I love about lifestyle medicine. So what we put in our body, what we do with our body directly impacts the microbiome.
What I
And
hear when you say, just in terms of beginning to learn about this, it gets back to one of our favorite statements. It's all about the power of team and what body is this team, and we're playing all these different positions and they're all incredibly valuable. And we know if one teammate goes down, it's not a team anymore. I mean, we need every single component. So as you share the science of it, I'm interpreting it into, wow, okay, really thinking of my body as my first machine and my first teammate, and how am I really taking care of this team so that I can go and be the person I want to be personally, professionally, philanthropically, in my family, wherever I am.
yeah, and it's really interesting because right on a team, there's lots of different kinds of players, right? You don't have 12 quarterbacks. There's different roles. And that's something that's so important in the microbiome is that we have what we call biodiversity. So if I can paint a picture for you, if you think about the desert, you know, it's a really harsh environment. There's not a lot of plants or animals that thrive there. Now compare that to the Amazon rainforest. where there might be 1,000 species between the dirt and the tops of the trees, right? So that's what we call a diverse ecosystem. And there's a place and a role for every animal or plant in that ecosystem. So think about your microbiome in that way. It's really important to have a wide range of microorganisms there on your team working for you for optimal health. Because what happens is if any one of those characters gets to thinking they're the only team member that matters, or there's a shift in the pH of your gut, something that throws it off and allows one group of organisms to kind of outperform the others, that's when we get into trouble. That's what we call dysbiosis. The team is not functioning well together. And that is what leads to inflammation, depressed immunity, chronic disease. Really, we're learning more and more that chronic disease starts with the gut and with the gut health. So, not just digesting our food, which is what a lot of people think the baseline role is for the microbiome, but the microbiome takes that food and produces new chemicals from it. Sometimes we talk about short chain fatty acids. Those are byproducts of a healthy gut microbiome that then go out and do different things for us in our bodies. You and I were talking right before we started recording that 95% of the serotonin and GABA, which are important neurotransmitters for our brain health and happiness, are actually made in our gut. And there's a huge crosstalk between the gut and the brain. Sometimes we call the gut the second brain,
Right.
and it might actually be the one in charge. So when you think about the pathways that go back and forth, there are two neural pathways from the brain down to the gut, but there are four from the gut to the brain.
Wow.
And some of the interesting science is that when you're hungry and craving something, what you crave might not even be up here in your brain, but it may be driven a lot more by what kind of bacteria and single-celled organisms live in your gut.
Mm.
So we know that our diets have incredible power to influence the makeup of our microbiome. And a Western diet, SAD, standard American diet, highly processed food, really selects for dysbiosis. So it starts weeding down that biodiversity, building populations of bugs that we know are kind of bad for our gut, inflammatory. And I like to say that those critters that live in your gut crave cheap fat and sugar.
Mm.
So if you have a lot of organisms in your gut that live off cheap fat and sugar, that is what you crave. Because ultimately, we got to feed the bugs. They're going to eat and they'd like to eat what their preference is.
Well, yes.
And if you don't feed the bugs,
Mm.
they actually start to eat us from the inside out.
Wow.
Kind of creepy, right? So if you
Mhm.
think about the lining of our intestine, it's a single cell layer
Wow.
between the stool in your gut and your bloodstream.
Mm.
Now, between that single cell layer and the microbiome is a thick layer of mucus, and it's made of it's basically a high amount of soluble fiber that's sucked up a bunch of water. Now, that's what the microbiome feasts on if you're not eating a diet rich in plants, fruits, and vegetables. You maybe have heard the term prebiotics and probiotics. We can talk more about what that means. But if we don't feed the bugs what they want, they start eating that layer. And that's where we get into leaky gut syndrome, chronic inflammation, right? Because there's less protection to our bloodstream from these, essentially toxins we're trying to get out of our body in our stool and our that part of our gut.
Well, let's raise our well-being cue and our give hope cue. Give us hope on how to really win when it comes to taking care of our gut so that it can take care of us. I mean, it's fascinating to really empower this body that's my team now.
Yeah, absolutely. And truly, food is the biggest impact that we have in our gut. We know from the science that you can change the makeup of your microbiome in about 36 hours by what you put in your mouth. And sometimes when people tell me, oh, well, if I eat too much fruits or vegetables or fiber or beans, I get really gassy, blah, blah, blah. And those symptoms of discomfort, that gas, that bloating, that's actually the bad bugs in your gut getting kicked out.
Oh, so it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. So they're putting up a fight. They don't really like that you're giving them whole foods and fiber and antioxidants. They want cheap fat and sugar. But if you can kind of stick with it, or what sometimes I recommend to people, start slow. I don't want you to be in the bathroom for a week, but can you add one serving of whole grains a day or one extra serving of fruits and veg per day and let your body get used to it? Because we know that these changes are going to really promote gut health in the long term. So you might have a couple days or a week or a week and a half where, "Oh, excuse me, I need to run out the room," right? But in the end, you're going to create that biodiversity. You're going to even the playing field and have more of those healthy microbes. And really, what our gut loves is fiber.
Okay.
And you and I have talked before that fiber is only found in plant foods. So we need to think about whole grains, the brown foods, as I call them, um, plant proteins, beans, nuts, legumes, mushrooms, and fruits and veggies. And we've also talked about the power of eating the rainbow
Right.
every day, accessing all the colors red, orange, yellow, deep leafy green, blue, or purple to really feed those different organisms in the microbiome, right? Because what's in the red family doesn't exist anywhere else. So microbiome or microorganisms that need lycopene, right? They're not going to find it anywhere else. So we have to get that variety. And one of the really cool things about the microbiome is they might take those plant chemicals in as one thing and pump it out as another that does something totally different for us in our body.
So let's talk food. Let's talk about what are the best ones for us. We just kind of summarized it with the things we've talked about before, but give us a very clear understanding of when you say fiber, tell me what is the best thing I can eat in a day, daily to make sure that I'm taking great care of my gut. And then tell me what's the worst thing I can do? What's exactly what I don't want to be doing?
Yeah. So I mentioned it a little bit before, and these words have been kind of hot recently, prebiotics and probiotics. So what does that mean? A prebiotic food is really a high fiber food that feeds the biome. It feeds your microbiome. So those are things like fruits and vegetables, but some of the really high value ones, onions, leeks, garlic, asparagus, chicory, Jerusalem artichoke. Some of these are things we don't eat every day. Um, but interesting, Jerusalem artichoke actually has this very special indigestible fiber in it called inulin. And this is something that food manufacturers will sometimes add to products to beef up the fiber content. So you may be able to access this without going out and finding a Jerusalem artichoke and preparing it. They are very interesting vegetables, but not available at most stores. But really, again, if you're thinking about the USDA goal of trying to eat 7 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, you don't have to get so specific. It's just really how do I get more plants into my diet?
So,
And
Dr. Hunter, thinking about wanting to get more plants in my diet, there's a lot of powder out there that can really, say, drink this and you've got all your vegetables. What's that doing when we sub in a powder versus the actual plant?
so the powders, depending on how they're prepared, might deliver you some of the antioxidant properties. They're not all created equal, right? Some of them take cooked vegetables, some of them take whole vegetables. The more you can get the whole food, so peels, seeds, stems, and all. I mean, a lot of the antioxidants that are in our fruits and vegetables come from the peel itself. There's more vitamin C in the rind of an orange than in the whole rest of the fruit. But most of us don't eat the rinds, right? So if you can find a plant powder that has that whole food component and is kind of minimally processed, that would be a good choice. Now, what you're not getting in that preparation is the fiber, right? So we could, I wouldn't really consider it a serving of fruits and veggies, right? It's not meant to replace you eating the real thing, but it might kind of give you some of that, those extra plant chemicals, amp that antioxidant value.
So, I want to discover really how to win our day from a gut health perspective. So, just talking food from the minute I wake up till the minute I go to bed, what's a good combination?
Yeah, so I would say starting our day with hydration. Water's hugely important, is also going to help with bowel movements as you increase the amount of fiber, because the more fiber you eat, you may actually need to increase your hydration so that you don't get constipated because it spends more time in the GI tract, and can actually make those stools a bit firmer. So making sure we're getting at least 64 ounces of water a day. I love starting the day with some steel cut oats, adding in some fruit to that, think frozen berries, chopped apples, sliced bananas. If you can also pair in with that a healthy fat and protein, so think our nuts here or seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, pecans, that sort of thing. So that's going to be a really nice balanced breakfast to hold you for the whole day. Thinking about your snacks throughout the day, I always say, how can you get at least one serving of fruits and veg with every snack or meal? So, an apple and peanut butter, great snack. I have one of those almost every day. Carrot sticks, pepper strips, celery, and hummus, right? Or salsa. And then when you're thinking about your dinner or lunch, again, it's trying to maximize the fruit and veg. So can you have like a big salad? I always say if we're trying to hit the rainbow, you can get a lot of colors in a salad. So a couple handfuls of leafy greens, think about a handful of chopped cherry tomatoes, diced carrots, purple cabbage, and you've gotten almost all the way through the rainbow. Top that with some healthy protein, whether that's going to be a lean animal product or black beans, chickpeas, something like that. Some avocado will give you the healthy fat. We do need fat in our diet. It helps us absorb those fat soluble vitamins in our fruits and vegetables. And you can even add a bit of whole grains. Think about adding some barley or farro to your salad. So again, you think about that on your plate, you're going to be pretty full and satisfied for many hours. And again, at dinner, I love to optimize the fruits and veggie intake with one pot meals. So soups, stews, curries, things that I can put in lots of servings of veggies, maybe 2 or 3 different kinds of plant proteins like beans, served over a whole grain. It's a great way to win your wellness there.
Well, and I love winning the day. So thank you for being very specific about that. So we know how to win it. Tell us how to lose it. What foods are we grabbing and going for when we're craving something? What's really stopping us from being able to honor and be for our gut in a way that's super healthy?
Yeah, when I think about the top foods that affect our gut, they're also kind of my top 3 inflammatory foods. So that is white flour, so highly processed flour. A lot of people talk about being gluten intolerant or going gluten free for gut health. And true, there is celiac disease in this country. It's actually, fairly prevalent in our area. However, unless you've been diagnosed with that, you may not have a gluten intolerance. You probably have a processed flour intolerance, right? So, and also the wheat that we eat in this country is highly genetically modified. It's not similar to what we evolved as a species consuming. So the more you can go with the whole grains, I'm going to opt for that. White foods, again, processed flours in general. Usually there's a lot of added sugar in those types of things. If you think about white bread and pastries and donuts, things like that. And added sugar and artificial sweeteners are my next one as far as inflammatory foods. The artificial sweeteners, people have been kind of sold the idea that a diet soda or a 0-calorie drink is a healthier option. And unfortunately, your taste buds don't know the difference. And so the same physiologic properties happen when we consume 0-calorie sweeteners that happen when we consume sugar or other sweeteners. So it's not really saving you going through that. And it has a negative impact on our microbiome. So we know that that decreases biodiversity. It changes the pH in the gut. So really trying to think about how many grams of added sugar are in this product I'm about to consume. And if it says 0, does that mean that there's been a sugar alcohol added or some other form of artificial sweetener? And then dairy products, affect some people differently, but I have them on my list of inflammatory foods, right? We are the only species that eats another species' milk.
Okay.
Um, and when you think about the role of cow's milk, it's to get a baby cow, to gain 300 pounds in the first year of life to become a grown-up cow, right? And when I hear people say, oh, well, where am I going to get my calcium? I would ask you, where do you think the cows get their calcium for the milk?
No idea where.
It's from the grass that they eat.
From
You
the
think
food.
about grass grows in the soil, absorbs the nutrients in the soil and all the minerals, and that is why cow's milk is a high calcium rich food. So we can get calcium from greens,
Yeah.
from plant foods. So I definitely encourage people to eat less dairy. Again, cheese is the highest source of saturated fat for Americans because we love it and we eat so much of it. And if you're having gut problems, I encourage you, try reducing or cut it out and see if those problems resolve. So my one exception to dairy would be yogurt. So I really recommend plain. Again, no added sugar, no added sweeteners. And you could consider low fat, and I'm not as tied to whether the high fat or low fat is important. Um, but a little bit, quarter cup, half cup of plain yogurt a day in your smoothie or along with your oatmeal or using it instead of sour cream or something like that has that probiotic, right? So probiotics, because we've already talked about prebiotics, are cultured foods that include healthy bacteria. And so it's kind of trying to recharge the microbiome by eating these foods. So dairy's not the only one. Things like kimchi and sauerkraut, kombucha is so hot right now. These are all foods that are really pretty healthy for our bodies. Again, with something like kombucha, I always want to look at how much added sugar is in there.
Yeah.
So when you make kombucha, the microorganisms that actually ferment it, they take the sugar out of whatever the person making the kombucha puts in, and then it's sweetened again after it's taken away from that. So true kombucha, the organisms consume the sugar and just have the fermented liquid left behind. And then we go ahead and add more sugar so that it's tasty, right? So again, just being aware, how much sugar am I putting in my body? I think about 100 years ago, the average adult American ate maybe 10 pounds of sugar a year. And now we eat like 350 pounds of sugar a year, something. I mean, it's just astronomically different. And it's even worse for kids. So, really being mindful, when I talk to people about reading nutrition labels, can be a really good way to bring awareness to what's going in. The FDA required, I believe, just as recently as 2022, that food manufacturers start to list the grams of added sugar. So you can tell how much natural sugar is in something versus how much sugar's just been added so that it's tasty to us.
So we know what we put into our body is incredibly important in terms of helping us to really set our gut up to win the day. And from a food perspective, everything we're putting in our mouth matters. It's either for us or against us, really helping us win that day. Let's move on to the next aspect of exercise, movement, stress. What's happening from a gut perspective there?
Yeah, exercise is really helpful for gut health. So if you think about kind of the good stress on the body from exercising. We know how it lifts our mood. That may be because some of those neurotransmitters getting made in the gut are getting distributed through the body. We also see improved blood flow and improved immunity after exercise. And it's really felt like that interaction between skeletal muscle movement and energy burn and the gut is so hugely important. So, again, when we talk about our goals for cardiovascular exercise, when we talk about our goals for strength building exercise, know that when you're hitting those goals, or even if you're just lightly active and moving throughout the day, you're having a positive impact on your gut. And when we think about, I hate to keep talking about constipation, but the gut and our bowels, our bowel movements are related. Um, one treatment for constipation is just get up and move, right? Our gut is made of smooth muscle that contracts and moves the food through. But we kind of help it out with gravity and with body movement as well. So hydration, movement, and high fiber foods are going to win your day for a healthy gut.
And so, from an exercise perspective, if I'm really tired and dragging and I'm not feeling well at all, is there 10 minutes? Is it walking? Like, is there something that really serves my gut as well as those chemical imbalances or chemical, the give hope chemicals that are setting off that really stimulate me feeling happier, me being able to find some motivation, me working through depression?
Yeah, I really recommend people think about a little exercise snack, like a 10-minute walk. When we talk about movement, you don't have to dedicate the hours in the gym. You don't have to be in the gym lifting heavy. It could be as simple as doing some wall push-ups at your desk, right? Doing some air squats, just something to get the juices flowing. But we do know from a cardiovascular standpoint, a 10-minute walk is enough to lower your blood pressure.
Well, power of 10, we love that. It's all about a 10 life. It's all about 10 minutes of exercise, putting in foods that are a 10 for us. From all of our work, we're committed to the stat system on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is low, 10 is fabulous. Really being able to stat up the choices that we're making, the investment we're making in our time, our energy, our emotions. So as we really train to win our gut health and to give us hope and to really give our world hope, being able to think about every choice that I make on a scale of 1 to 10, how healthy is this for my gut? Is this for my gut or not? And so really being able to be in that 8, 9, or 10 zone with all of our choices helps to make my body set up to be able to do whatever I'm supposed to be doing. So one thing that could really lower my stat is stress, anxiety. What's happening when that hits in my gut?
Yeah, so we've already talked about the gut brain axis and the way that the gut communicates. So, not only through the nervous system, but also the lymphatic system, which kind of helps move fluid through the body. That's also an important part of our immune system. So, lots of lymph nodes associated in the gut. And it's really known that poor gut health tied with poor nutrition really increases our stress levels. We have increased levels of anxiety and depression and a lower resilience to stress. We can't really bounce back from stress when we have poor gut health. And it probably gets to that chronic inflammation in the gut. I really think about all chronic disease in our body as being linked to underlying inflammation. And it usually does start in the gut with that, shrinking the mucus layer. The cells in the gut are not as healthy, and so toxins that should be leaving our body are actually re-entering the body through the bloodstream. It really does affect our mood. And we've already talked about the fact that a lot of neurochemicals are made in the gut, and some recent studies actually shows that diets that are rich in those micronutrients, plant chemicals that we were talking about, antioxidants, folks who eat those diets actually have less mental illness. So,
Hmm.
less trouble with anxiety, depression, and severe mental illness because of the healthy integrity of the gut, which is really talking to our brain, giving our brain that feedback that we're healthy, we're feeling good, things are good.
When I listen to you and think about if I'm feeling down or depressed or struggling, the last thing I want to do is make healthy choices. It's just not there, right? I mean, I want to eat some junk food. I want to watch some TV. I want to, definitely not get up and exercise for 10 minutes or make some 10 choices from that perspective. So thank you for the gift of really giving us the new hope and the new thinking and new skills to recognize that as soon as that happens, as soon as I feel a certain way, I need to be able to be proactive and know that that's actually my gut is in a battle right now. It's really going for kind of the good guys or the bad guys being able to win out here. And if I can just do something for 10 minutes that's really for me versus giving in to that negativity and just that desire, that's hope. I mean, really being able to understand that it just takes a choice of 10 minutes of movement or grab something that's good for me. And then I can still have some sugar if I need to. Just starting to recognize that I do have the power to make this choice. And when I make a healthy choice, I'm empowering my body to really be able to be for me.
Yeah, and even, if you are feeling tired or like you can't get out the door, I mean, doing some gentle stretching, some yoga. I mean, the twists that are in yoga, when you're kind of rotating your body, that's actually stimulating the gut, right? Because the internal organs are kind of getting twisted and wrung out, so it's almost like a rinse and a detox for your gut. So even if you can do some seated yoga postures or take some deep breaths, right? Tell your body, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to not feel a 10 right now. And I get to make a choice, right? Am I going to stay in this place, or what do I need to raise myself up? Should I call a friend, right? Maybe I call a friend and then I'm motivated to get out and go on that walk while I'm talking to them. Um, Maybe it's I've been sleeping really poorly. Maybe I need to take a quick nap, right? I mean, we know that sleep and the gut are related, and we can chat more about that too. But power naps, under 20 minutes, even 9 minutes of sleep is enough to kind of give you a bit of a boost. And those short naps are not going to impact your sleep at night. And we know that sleep health is really important for our microbiome too.
So let's talk about sleep. It's incredibly important. We know it's the number one indicator for peak performance. We have total control over it. What's happening between sleep and our guts?
So, one of the really interesting things to me, Carlette, when I learned about this is that the microbiome is on the same circadian rhythm that wheat should be on.
Hmm.
So, the circadian rhythm is basically thinking about sleep as that 24-hour cycle. There's a complex pattern of hormone release and vasodilation, and where our core body temperature drops and raises. And we evolved as a species that until the invention of the light bulb, when the sun went down, it's time to go to bed. And our gut microbe hasn't changed in that fact. And so, one of the problems that I see for people is eating late at night. So, your gut, while it's one of its main jobs is to digest our food, as we've already talked about, it does so much else that if you're putting in work to be done late at night, we're not getting the detoxification. We're not getting the moving that food through the GI tract so that you can have a healthy bowel movement the next day. So it really throws off your microbiome. We see this especially in people who work night shift. And so many of, from our nurses' health study, we've looked at tens of thousands of nurses, and people who work nights have more chronic disease. They're more likely to be obese, which we know that being lean or overweight can be directly related to the bugs in our gut. So we want to do everything we can to prevent dysbiosis. And so the recommendation in lifestyle medicine is no calories for 3 hours before bed, so that what you've consumed really has time to make its way through the GI tract, and you can go to bed and you may find you sleep better. And then that protects the health of the microbiome. They don't really sleep. Single-celled organisms aren't like putting their eye patches on and taking 12 hours, but it's that secondary work, the work they do that's not just digesting, to really promote health, to decrease inflammation, to have impacts on our immune system, right? Less cancer if you sleep better, less heart disease if you sleep better. So, again, when we talk about the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, we can't select out one that's more important than the other. It's just like all of our organs in our body, the brain doesn't do very well without the heart or the lungs. So we do have to work together as a team, and we have to kind of think of all those pillars and put priority, as best we can on trying to get a 10 in each of them to really for optimal health.
Well, I love that ability to really recognize the power of team. I mean, it's just showing up constantly how we need each other. We need our organs to need each other and to take good care of each other. We need each other emotionally to be able to reach out and encourage and be there for each other. We need each other to learn all this information. I mean, what a great gift of education. So really respect and appreciate the diversity. What's the difference? How can we really celebrate different?
Right. And each piece has its role. We can't do it without each other. We need that diversity. We need that really rich ecosystem for optimal health.
Dr. Hunter, wow, what a gift. You have coached us up, as always, to really be able to be for us and to understand what we choose to put in us is going to affect how we're going to be able to show up for our world and for ourselves, for our families. And thank you so much for really the gift of understanding the power of our gut and what it does for us. So, team, it's up to you. Go out and win your gut health this week. We've heard so much about it. It's constantly being brought up. I hope that we've given it to you in a way that you can win your day. So you're winning your life and raising your well-being Q. Dr. Hunter, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.